everyone, welcome to the Sports Doyen. This is Kushagra, and today we've got such a treat for you guys. We've got Mr. Daryl Harper, the former ICC elite panel umpire for about over 10 years, someone who we've seen on our television screens so often, someone whose finger we really dreaded when it was against our own batsmen, of course. But thank you so much, Daryl, for joining us. Such a huge honor and a pleasure for us to have you on board.
Oh, thank you, Kushagra. That's great. It's lovely to join you at the Cricket Doyen. My pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is absolutely all ours. I'll get straight into the thick of things. Daryl, the first thing that stands out for me is the extensive and consistent length of time you were there on the elite umpiring panel. From 2002 to 2011, that's 10 straight seasons. It must have taken a massive amount of toll on you, personally and professionally, considering you must have been traveling most of the year all over the world, and also the mental pressures of umpiring. So could you just tell us what goes into an international umpire's routine? How do you prepare for it, and any particular special preparations for any country as such?
Wow. There's an hour and a half I could talk about all those questions. Firstly, I should tell you that it does take its toll, because when I started my umpiring career, I had a head of hair like you've got now, and that soon disappeared. But that was all part of the journey. Look, I loved the fact that I was doing something that I had passion for. I mean, I was umpiring cricket in Adelaide when I was 31 years of age, and I was just doing it as a hobby. I never dreamed that I would eventually travel the world and see so many people, so many places, and see so much cricket. You're right, I did last a long time. In fact, there were 8 of us on the elite panel in 2002, and I was the last one to leave. The other 7 had all departed. I was the lone survivor, and in 2011, I got my marching orders and I was gone. I was about to turn 60. I was getting old, so you can imagine I'm about to turn 70 now. I'd seen a lot of cricket, and I think the ICC decided it was time for some young blood to come in and freshen up the system. So although I was disappointed to finish, I'd had a very good run, and I certainly couldn't complain. What goes into surviving all that time? I think you've got to be very strong in the fact that you go through the routines that you've practiced as a young umpire. You simply stick to this. You keep the job simple. You don't try and make it complicated. And if I gave any advice to any umpire, I'd always say, you've got to be yourself. Don't mimic someone else. Don't try and be a Simon Taufel. Don't try and be a Billy Bowden. Don't try and be a Venkat. You've got to do it naturally. I think the more natural that you can do it, the more chance you've got of surviving, because you're not putting on an act. You're just being yourself. And I just enjoyed being myself for, I did my first international game in 1993. So I suppose I lasted it for about 17 or 18 years. And I had a great time, and I have no regrets. Sure, some decisions I'd like to have over again, and you can probably tell me about some of those, but we're never always going to get it right. Despite umpires being desperate to make the right decision all the time, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. You come off the field and you discover that you've missed an edge, or you've given an LB that wasn't going to hit the leg stump as you thought. These days, of course, umpiring's changed a little bit, and you've got the DRS. That was just coming into play as I was finishing. So most of my umpiring career was done without the DRS. For example, the first time I came to India was in 1999. I came to Kanpur for a test match between New Zealand and India. And honestly, it was like going to the moon. It was like going into a whole new landscape, because here I was in Green Park, Kanpur, on the first morning of the match. And there were 4 fieldsmen within striking distance of the batsmen. The spinners were on. I think India had 4 players in the team that were all quality spinners. And I said to my partner, A.V. Jayaprakash, this is not the game I've been umpiring in Australia. We don't usually see the spinners until late in the match. I come from Adelaide Oval being a wonderful venue. Normally, the spinners would come into play in a Sheffield Shield match on the third or fourth day. And here I was in Kanpur. All the fieldsmen had gathered around the bat, appeals left, right and centre. And I really felt as if I was out of my depth. I felt that I was doing a job that I wasn't prepared to do. But I guess I learned on the job. I kept a fairly calm head and just tried to put on a happy smile, which is what I normally do anyway, and survived that first experience in India. And after that, I couldn't get back to India often enough. I went many times. I lost count of the times I went to India. I think I umpired 8 tests in India. I umpired many ODIs. I umpired the first 3 years of the IPL, the first year of the Champions League. So I've probably seen more of India than a lot of Indians have seen. And I've been, very fortunate to share that with my family as well.
Absolutely. And you were talking about DRS being there, and you were talking about umpiring having slightly changed. I don't know. I think we have all those iconic moments wherein the decisions may not have been 100% accurate, but at least there was a definitive moment of a decision. But now these days that we look at umpiring, it almost seems like an afterthought. As soon as an appeal happens, all you're thinking about is it nicking the stumps or not?
Yeah,
Is some part of the seam of the ball just touching the stump so that I can get the umpire's call, my review is retained, and if the finger's gone up, so has the batsman. And we saw what happened in the 2019 World Cup. Still feel it was extremely unfair on what happened with the New Zealanders, how things eventually ended up going. But if you look at such circumstances, we've seen in other sports wherein, especially in football, soccer, as we talk about, where video assistant referee is such a controversial thing. It's been it's been spoken about so much. We felt that cricket as a sport had adapted to technology very well. But now with this, some countries have an issue with the snickometer, some countries have an issue with the hotspot, some countries have an issue with the actual trajectory of the ball after it pitches, after it hits the pads and everything else. I don't think there is ever a situation we reach wherein everyone would be okay with the decision.
Or wouldn't it be boring?
Yeah, I think it'll be boring. So I think. What do you think? We'll just keep increasing the dependence on technology and just keep going along with that in cricket, or do you think there has to be a point wherein you stop?
Look, I don't think the official or the administrators now will stop. They'll be pursuing perfection for as long as they're in charge of the game. And of course, perfection is not going to come. The technology can never be 100% perfect. So we've got to accept that there will always be limitations. If you remember back in 2007, 2008, when the system first came in, India was very reluctant. In fact, they might have been the last country to even dabble their toes in it, because at the time, the Indian administrators were saying, look, we're not going to use it until it's 100% correct or accurate. And eventually they softened their thought on that and they took it on. In fact, the very first time they used it, I think, was in a series with Sri Lanka, and poor old India. I think they made about 7 or 8 challenges and all of them were denied them except for perhaps one. So it was a very bad start. And I think it got a lot of Indians offside with the system, and they never, it took them a long time to get any confidence in it. Personally, when you talk about the current day umpires, I think that myself and the current day umpires owe the technology a lot, because I think my perception, for example, of an LBW changed when I kept seeing replays that weren't involved in decision making at the time. I kept seeing ball predictions clipping the leg stump. And when I started umpiring, we would never give anyone out if we thought the ball was just going to clip leg stump. That was too much of a gamble. So what the technology did was it retrained us. It made us think more carefully, and umpires started giving more outs that were going to hit the leg stump or clip the leg stump than we had in the past. I think the current group of umpires are much more highly skilled than we were. I think if we'd had the full-blown technology that they're operating under now, we would have been shown to be very, very average umpires. I think they are extremely highly skilled. And if you go back to the series we just played in Australia in the last summer, I think there were 4 tests. The umpiring was all done by Australians. And of the decisions that were reviewed, at least 80% of them were confirmed as correct. So only 1 in 5 of those reviewed decisions went against the umpire's original call, which is a pretty good result. And I think it's probably good evidence to convince the ICC that they don't really need to have independent umpires and officials at every test match in every country around the world. I think they could save a little bit of money with less travel. But these umpires today, they do a marvellous job, and my hats go off to them. 2019 World Cup final, you mentioned that. I can't let that go without a comment. The problem came with a law of cricket that isn't used very often, and that was with regards to the throw coming in from the outfield and the time the ball was thrown. I have quite a strong opinion on that subject because I don't believe any of the umpires or the referee involved in that match had probably ever sat for a test on the laws of cricket. Now, I've always called myself a garden variety umpire because I picked it up, I went to the courses, I had an exam on the laws every season for 20 seasons. I went through different exams each time. So my knowledge of the laws it just had to be sharp. But players that have played test cricket or first class cricket that come into the umpiring scene, they don't necessarily have to go through that same pathway. Nothing against them. They've had wonderful careers as players, but you can't just dump someone into a job and expect them to know the laws intricately. And that is one law that I'm sure none of them knew. There was a suggestion that the referee and the third umpire could not intervene because they hadn't been called upon. Well, any umpire worth his salt knows that once the game starts, you're in it as a group. You are there to help each other out at every opportunity. So the fact that they weren't asked for support or advice on that crucial issue, I think is absolute nonsense. And I think it was just simply a matter of the fact that all the officials were former players, former first class or test players. They did not know that law. They can challenge me on that one, but it just seems so obvious to millions of umpires around the world that it was just a lack of knowledge. Sure, they know most of the laws, but that was one that just caught them out. And unfortunately for New Zealand, they missed out on winning almost certainly missed out on winning the World Cup, because we don't really know what was going to happen with the next delivery. But Stokes wouldn't have been on strike, and I think it would have been a different result.
Well, we do, Daryl. New Zealand would have won by 1 run. We do know. And I think you actually covered the next question I was going to ask you. But that's a fantastic answer. Why I say that is because you put it in such a balanced manner, in such a nuanced manner, to actually take the credit away from you guys, which I feel is a little unfair, because personally speaking, I felt the standard and quality of umpiring, or at least the standard and quality of communication between the umpires and the players and the I wouldn't say it's so much as respect for the authority of the umpire. Just a basic sense of understanding between both the parties was much greater then. At this point, it almost feels like the players and the umpires have a little bit of a acrimonious relationship, a little bit of an unease between both the parties, which is it's not like the umpires are against the players or the players are against the umpires. Everyone's there to play the game. And you're spot on there, because my next question would have been, with so much cricket being played all over the world, so many different leagues coming up, so many, you got the 100, it's not going to be for too long when you've got the 10, when you've got the 5, when you've got the 2, when you've got the 1, when you just have a toss. I don't know. I mean, we're just reducing the balls, I think. So, so you've got to have all kinds of cricket in the next 5 to 10 years. And therefore, the need for match officials, professional umpires also increases. Sure. My question would have been, where do you see this trend of past players, be it state players or international players, coming into this field of umpiring, and the whole quota of professional career umpires just going down? You don't see that many people who've not played cricket at the highest, at least the first grade level, coming in through the system and becoming umpires in the future. Because even today, you talked about the series in Australia. We had Paul Rifle there as one of the umpires, former Test player for Australia, of course. And he's a fantastic umpire, no doubt there. But there are more of Paul Rifles there than of Daryl Harpers these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right, but partly because it's become a little bit more clinical. You're talking about that relationship having the DRS, and there'll be perhaps a little bit of distance between the players and the umpires. In my day, look, I made the decision. The players had to accept it. Sometimes they weren't happy, sometimes they were, but they knew that the umpire's decision was final. They might have shaken their head, or they might have scratched the ground as they left, or they might have mumbled under their breath. But the next time I saw them, it was as if nothing had happened. The players knew that we were doing our best, and sometimes our best wasn't perfect, but I think we always had a good relationship. So many players. I used to love being on the field with certain people that I knew would be talkers. I've always been a bit of a talker on the field, and some people don't want to talk. But if I had Irfan Pathan near me, for example, or I had Virender Sehwag near me, I knew it wouldn't be quiet. I knew there'd be plenty to chat about in between deliveries, and that's the atmosphere that I really thrived in. I loved umpiring in that era, and maybe that era's moved on now. Maybe it's not quite as warm and friendly. I'm not sure, but I do know the umpires are doing the best job they can.
Absolutely, and on that note, you talk about players like Sehwag, like Irfan, and I'm sure you have a lot of other instances as well. Just a question on you. I have an abiding memory of watching you and Rudy Kurdzin umpire together. It was like fire and ice. You were, as you said, you were expressive on the field. You were not afraid of putting people back in their places, not afraid of telling people how to do things. Whereas Rudy was like this elder statesman, like the guy you were scared of approaching. You don't want to disappoint him because you can see the look in his face, and you're almost half you're soiling your pants, almost approaching him. How was the dynamic like? Because we had interesting dynamics like Billy and Simon. It was diametrically opposite. Billy is like trying to be a different kind of a dancer, while Simon Toffel is almost like sternly looking like, hey, you're out, go. And with you and Rudy, it was entirely opposite as well.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because totally different characters and personalities could come together and work together beautifully on the field and combine extremely well to get the game ticking over and through without major incidents. But sometimes those people didn't mix very much off the field because, they would go in their different directions. But there was a certain amount of professionalism between the umpires that just determined that once you were on the field, you worked together, you did everything, in most cases, you did everything you could do to support your partner. And often that was just a glance between deliveries. It was a nod of the head, just a signal of some kind. It probably wouldn't have been noticed from outside the field, but despite the different characteristics of the umpires, we worked together. But having said that, I've made a bad discovery recently. I've been searching through a lot of news sites looking for photos of myself in action to go in a publication I want to produce. And I've discovered something very bad, and that is I'm in far too many photos when I'm pointing at somebody or making a point to somebody, not actually pointing directly at them, but I'm making my point. And yes, I think when I see one of those, I think, oh, Daryl, you're being too bossy, or you were being too bossy. But I was a school teacher after all, and maybe I was just making the point. But yes, I've found far too many photos of me waving my finger.
Yeah, I think for the right reasons, of course. I'm sure that is the case. Just carrying on with the whole discussion about umpiring and about the whole prospects for any young umpire coming into the game. What would your advice be to any budding umpires? We've seen a lot of new umpires come into the fold in the last 3 or 4 years as the cycle changes, as a few umpires, older elite umpires move out of the system. You've got new umpires coming in. we had Miss Sue Redfern becoming the first ever woman umpire to stand in a test yesterday. That continues today between England and India women's teams. So for any budding umpires, any guys and girls wanting to be on the center stage, what would your advice be?
Well, it's a long way from being a budding umpire to getting to the centre stage. So my advice from previously was be yourself. You've got to be yourself. You've got to be natural. You've got to act naturally because you've got to build relationships with everybody. You can't just stand there and make decisions and expect to get the next appointment. Even if your decisions are correct, you've got to actually take part in the game. You've got to become a small part of the game, not a large part of the game, not the most important part of the game, but you've got to carry your duty professionally, and above all, you've got to enjoy yourself. There's not much point in going out there and standing out there for 5 days of a test match with a scowl on your face and worrying about whether or not you're going to get another game the following month. You've really got to go out and enjoy the moment and let people see that you are actually enjoying what you're doing. You're not just a soldier or a policeman. You are out there having a bit of fun. And I have been pleased to find myself in a few photographs having a chuckle even with Harbhajan Singh. I can't remember what we were joking about at the time, but I found some really good photos that remind me of all the good times I got out of cricket. They far outweighed the tougher times, the bad times, and the bad times usually came when I made a mistake and it might have changed the course of the game. Someone wasn't happy with me, but the good times will far outweigh the bad. And my motto was always enjoy the moment because you don't know if there's going to be another game around the corner. So enjoy this one.
Absolutely spot on there. But I know we talk about we just the last couple of questions for you, Daryl. We talk about a lot about your journey into the field of umpiring, and you spoke about how you started that out as something you were just very passionate about. So while growing up, just wanted to know who were your influences. I'm sure you would have had your favorite cricketers. You must have had your favorite Australian players that you really keenly followed all through the different Aussie summers. So if you could pick out a couple of players or maybe a couple of officials who had a great influence on you during your umpiring career as well.
Okay, well, as far as players were concerned, my first cricket bat was a Bobby Simpson Slazenger 5-star bat. I got it at about the age of 12 and I had a beautiful cover for it to protect it. I treated that like it was worth $1 million. So Bobby Simpson was someone I definitely admired right from the beginning. When I played club cricket in Adelaide, here in Adelaide, for a team called East Torrens, our club captain had played Test cricket and he'd actually made his only Test century in Chennai. His name was Les Favell, Favell, Les Favell. Didn't play a huge number of Tests, but he played in the Tide Test in Brisbane in 1960-61 series, and he also made a century in Chennai against India. And I loved it. I admired the way he played his cricket because it didn't matter whether it was the first ball of the day or the last ball. If that ball was short, he was going to hook it. There wasn't any dodging or ducking or weaving with Les Favell. He played with a great entertainment, and he was great to watch. So they were two of the players that I admired a lot. Umpiring wise was interesting because as a boy, I discovered someone in our family was umpiring Test cricket, and his name was Mel McGuinness. Mel umpired about 16 Test matches in the 1950s, and he was a big, tall man of 6'5". When he was as young as 14, he'd grown to 6'5". So he always stood out in the crowd, and he stood out as an Australian rules footballer and as a cricketer. And when he was an umpire, he was an extremely tall man. And yes, whenever we had a family gathering, I would go to Mel and listen to his stories. I loved his stories about the Test players. They didn't get as many opportunities in those days because, the Test series sometimes came every second summer to Australia. Anyway, Mel umpired 16 Test matches, and I was thrilled that he was on the Australian Cricket Board, involved with the Australian Cricket Board when I was coming up through the ranks. And I hope I made him proud to eventually follow in his footsteps. So, yes, he was someone I admired greatly. Other umpires, Tony Crafter was one of my first colleagues on the field. joining the elite panel, I was very, very fortunate to umpire a number of times with David Shepherd, my absolutely favourite number one umpire of all time. Just a wonderful person, generous, kind, thoughtful, a brilliant umpire, and so highly regarded by everyone that played the game. So you can see I had some good influences to follow in their footsteps, and they all set me on the right path in one way or another.
Absolutely, and so you had some fantastic influences there. Bob Simpson, as you talk about, and of course David Shepherd. How can one not remember David Shepherd? The little bent head, and just telling you out, mate. And that is some really iconic personalities of the game, and that as we move along. Around that, Daryl, you've been involved with one of the moments of the moments of Indian cricket, which would be the 2007 World T20 final between India and Pakistan, of course.
Now, which game?
The World T20 2007.
2007.
You were the TV umpire for that.
Okay. I was on the telly, was it?
Yes,
to be honest, yes. I forget about my role on the TV. I always remember the on-field role more importantly. Okay. Yes. I've got a very bad statistic for you. Can I tell you a very bad statistic? I believe when I was on the field, I did umpire over 830 games of cricket from start to finish, and I umpired 95 tests and 175 for ODIs. That's a dispute about that number. But I only ever umpired on field 4 times with India playing Pakistan. 3 ODIs and 1 test match. So I only had the 2 teams competing against each other 4 times. And I should quietly whisper this, that Pakistan actually won all 4. So,
that's fair. I think you at least had 4. I think these days we don't think many umpires even get a couple of opportunities to officiate India-Pakistan matches, considering they happen once in 4 years.
It's very sad. I think the last time I umpired them when I umpired them in a test was in Karachi in 2006, and there've only been 1 or 2 tests ever played since then. And that was a remarkable test.
I think post that we just played the 1 test match against Pakistan. Sorry, the 1 series against Pakistan when they came to India.
And you know what the sad thing is that I know the players from both teams as competitors, and I know how lovely people they are. And to think that those 2 wonderful nations of competitors can't get on the field a little bit more often, I find that disappointing. I understand the politics, but I just think it's a major disappointment for the fans. They're always keenly contested contests. I love them all 4 of those, very much.
All right. And we as the public viewing public would love to see India-Pakistan contest, especially now, considering Pakistan have a better record against India in both the formats. So we'd like the Indian team, which is better now, to maybe change that and give the Indians a few victories back. So I guess it wouldn't be too bad to play Pakistan now.
I think you need to have a word to the Prime Minister.
Of course. Why not? All in good time, I suppose. I don't think you probably, Daryl, escape any interview with an Indian interviewer without them asking you about that Sachin LBW. What I would do is I will not ask you about that. I'd just like to ask you.
Please do.
No, because I just feel like it's while the whole team was doing its research for the interview, we all found a common thread. Everyone asks you that question. It just seems like after a point you just have to let those things go. It's okay, that happened. I mean, that isn't the most outrageous thing on the field of the play. It's an incident that happened. He was in front of the wicket. It wasn't.
I'm sorry.
He wasn't.
I'm sorry you've been misguided, because it's not something I want to let go. It is something that happened. I made the decision, and I've got to tell you that if I can have my book published later this year, I want you to have a look at the section of still photographs that I'll have that will convince you without doubt that it was the correct decision. And you might remember that Richie Benaud Richie Benaud was actually off air at the time of that incident. It happened late on the fourth afternoon. India was 3 for 27, and very quickly they were 4 for 27. Richie Benaud came back on air the following day, and when he was on air, he actually said that from the vision he saw and the photographs he saw, the ball had reached its highest point and was on its way down and was not going to clear the stumps. So Richie Benaud, talk about Doyen, you know, if you're the cricket Doyen group, he's the Australian Doyen of all times. He said it was out.
That's the biggest endorsement you could have gotten, isn't it? My question was around this only. We've seen that dismissal of Sachin. In your memory, whether when you were on the field or off the field, any other interesting dismissals or any other interesting anecdotes of the players that you very fondly remember? It hopefully turned out into be an incident that you guys can maybe now share a beer over.
Look, I have a lot of anecdotes, a lot of stories. I mean, I've said earlier that it's all about being approachable and being friendly and having warmth and enjoying yourself. I do recall the first time I umpired the West Indies in Adelaide, playing an ODI against Pakistan, and Roger Harper was playing. Roger Harper, same surname. Okay, now Roger is about 6'5", 6'4", quite clearly very athletic, great at what he used to do. His off spin, his fielding was sensational, and he batted a little bit. But what happened was there was a run out in this particular ODI. It was only my second ODI. So, I did get more than 170 more after this, so it didn't prove to be my last one. But I waited 23 months between my first match and my second match. So here I was on Adelaide Oval, 2 years after my debut in an ODI. Roger Harper was standing near me when a wicket fell, and I said to him, "Roger, the Adelaide Oval scoreboard, there's 2 Harpers on the board. That's very unusual." And he looked at me, and he thought about it, and he just nodded. He didn't speak. I still hadn't heard him speak. I didn't know if he could speak. And my partner, Terry Prue, came across from square leg, and just as he arrived, I said to Roger, "Hey, Roger, do you think we might be related?" And Roger thought about it for a moment, and in a very beautiful, deep voice that would be perfect for radio, he said to me, "Maybe if you go way, way back," meaning many, many generations ago. And my colleague was shocked that I'd spoken so disrespectfully to a player. But I said, "Terry, this might be my last game. I want to enjoy every minute, and that's what I'm doing." Now, from that moment onwards, I saw Roger in different parts of the world. He continued to play. He became the coach of Kenya. I saw him in World Cups here and there. Whenever I saw Roger, he would give me a high five and say, "G'day, cuz," short for cousin. So he carried the joke on more than I did. But those were the moments that they made it for me. That's something that was more important than getting decisions right for me, was making a connection to people. And I guess I still do that in my life today. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I'm passionate about what I used to do, and I'm passionate about what I'm doing now. I've just got that natural love for cricket.
Absolutely, and I just can't even believe that the time's just flown by, and we've been chatting all this while. I still have a list of questions that I could ask you. I think that probably this is what we can probably call it an afternoon on this. In the World Test Championship, that's gone around for the last 2 years.
Sure.
We see that the final that's going to take place I think starts tomorrow at Southampton, and India take on New Zealand there at the AGS Bowl. Just your thoughts on the whole World Test Championship format, and the necessary boost that the Test cricket in itself needs, and why do we have to play a final in England in June all the time? Well, why do we keep going back to England in June and July to play cricket when we know 70% of the time there's just going to be rain?
Well, doesn't England own the game? Isn't it theirs to control? I mean, we're only pawns in the system.
Of all the months, you could just have to avoid those 2 months, June and July, because it's the worst months in England.
It is. But look, a lot of players from around the world over the years have gone to play county cricket, and they are used to the cold. I mean, it doesn't come as a shock to them. I think it's just remarkable in this COVID-19 era that we're even having a series, we're even having a Test match championship, and I think it's just an extra piece of the pie that makes cricket more interesting and keeps people interested around the world. I'm always impressed by the Kiwis. The Kiwis they always play above their weight. They've got some remarkably good players. To be honest, they play with the best spirit of cricket that I've ever known during my career and since then. They're just wonderful to watch, and they've had some wonderful leaders, and the Kane Williamson's continuing that tradition. Why in England? Yes, I'm not sure. I suppose you'd rather have it in India, since you provide most of the currency to support the game of cricket.
I would say leave it to the two teams who have to play the final to decide the venue. I think that's the fairest aspect of it, because we do understand conditions, home conditions play a massive part in cricket, especially in Test cricket now. So maybe the two boards or the two countries or the two captains or two organizations can decide and take a vote on it. I am sure they wouldn't have settled on Southampton had they taken a collective call.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the sponsorship, the financial interests. I really don't know, but I do know that I'll be taking great interest in it, and I won't be following it ball for ball like I used to. There are other things that are more interesting now, like the golf will be coming out of the United States over the weekend. I'll be watching that as well. And also baseball coming out of the United States. I've got too many sporting interests. I haven't got enough hours in the day to watch everything I want to see.
Oh, yes. Especially these days, as we build up to, I don't know if you do follow tennis as well, as we build up to the Wimbledon season, grass court season as well. So
yes.
That's something for us to keep an eye out for.
Wimbledon in July. You've got to stay up late and watch games to that.
Yeah,
it's compulsory.
Yes, absolutely. Daryl, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I think personally speaking, I could do this for another hour. I'm sure you got other things to do, but we've had such a blast having you on the channel. Thank you so much for coming in, and we hope we can talk to you again soon, sometime, maybe in a different format, maybe you reacting to some of the more controversial opinions of Indian cricket fans.
Look, I've been through so many different eras of cricket. When I first started, of course, Azhar was the captain, the national captain. Umpired Azhar in Sharjah in the year 2000. I saw Saurav come through the system. Virat, of course, actually played. He played in the last Test I umpired. Was his first Test. Virat Kohli's very first Test, Kingston, Jamaica, about June 2011. And the records won't show you this, but the referee was required to speak to him for excessive appealing. In his very first Test match, we asked the referee to have a word to him to calm down because he was too loud and too in our face. And I'm not sure if he heard that message.
I think it's been 10 years and the match referee is still not spoken with him.
That's cricket. Lovely to be with you. Lovely to join you.
The pleasure was all ours. Thank you so much, Daryl, for joining on, and thank you so much for coming.
Fimilingi.